high stakes. Nervous tension is on the agenda for anyone listening. Something new is in motion within the opera, but its innovations are cloaked and refracted by atavism and a sumptuous feel for conventions. Its early audiences were exhilarated and bewildered. Mozart's new opera finally premiered very late in October. The richly dressed listeners would have met with murky, bumpy streets around the opera house as 7 o'clock approached. The imperial governor's own money had built the theatre a handful of years earlier, a space ready for novelty in a city chafing against decades of indifference or even neglect from its Habsburg rulers in Vienna. A restless underlying resentment and a skittering cultural inventiveness pervaded the Bohemian capital, making it the perfect landing place for such an exuberantly complex opera. Erratic, smoky light would have drifted around an auditorium only barely separated from backstage chaos as the opera's action opened. In Mozart's century, an audience did not stop being noisy and sociable just because the performance was underway. It may often have given them something else to talk about. Maybe Mozart felt some burst of control once the thing had started, as he willed the music onwards and coaxed his performers on. But the opera was also now ceasing to be his. At the heights of art, power and its loss can join hands. The opera's shadowy overture throws it into events in which sex, violence, comedy, and loss briskly overlap. Giovanni's flight from one of his exploits brings him face to face with Donna Elvira, an abandoned lover who has been on his trail. He abandons her again now and leaves his manservant and sidekick, Leporello, to deal with her. We may feel momentarily disappointed that Giovanni has left the stage. The opera depends on his charisma and our appalled fascination with him. But the aria that Leporello comes up with is the point at which the opera becomes as fully itself as Giovanni is irreparably himself, as it fuses charm with power and drastic moral truthfulness. It is known as the catalogue aria because it inflicts on Elvira an expansive, brutally playful enumeration of the lovers or victims that Giovanni has left behind. An ambiguous courtly swagger fizzes through Mozart's music as it streams through arch and aching shifts of pace and texture. Its artfulness is both dizzying and dizzy as mischief and cruelty embroil it. Comedy and bleakness mix in Leporello's voice, and the nearly sobbing tenderness that seems close whenever he mentions Spain is punctured by the aria's punchline as he gives the appallingly precise number of 1003 for his boss's successes in that famously devout country. Elvira needs to hear who this man is, and even those in the audience familiar with the story need to hear his rapacity rampantly set out. But the awful truth is delivered here in a vein of brisk, outrageous comedy by a waggishly officious manservant. Whose side are these frisky violins on? The opening of a new opera brought the disparate, spinning social and cultural forces of late 18th-century Europe together like no other occasion, and in this aria Mozart satisfies all the motives of pleasure and excitement that took people to the opera while also turning them inside out. Europe was wavering on the brink of the modern world, and Mozart became the key artist of the modern world because his music was so richly fired by so many of the factors and energies at work in this process. Sometimes this Europe was as elegant as its nicest fictions claimed, and sometimes it was as violent as its turbulent dreams suggested. The revolution in France whetted the culture's vastest hopes, but using the guillotine became official policy there just a few months after the composer's death. Mozart was the sharpest analyst of this world, and his music lets us listen into the heartbeat and the brainwaves of modern experience in the throes of its emergence. Extremes of skill and originality are needed to represent a world as teeming and fluctual as his was, as richly as he did. Mozart guides us through his restless historical world, and thinking more deeply about the world in which he worked should also change how we hear his music. Our ears should open to more of what those beautiful sounds chase after. The impact of Leporello's aria comes partly from the acute, rueful parallels hidden within it between the seducer's veracity and the hunger for experiences, styles, and vistas that powers Mozart's music.